We have some exciting sessions coming up, and as mentioned yesterday, we have informational stands on the balcony, which I encourage you to check out in the next break. And now it's time for the first session, and it will be led by Her Royal Highness Crown Princess Mette-Marit.
Good morning, everyone. How are you this morning?
Good.
In Norwegian, we have an expression called jumping after Wirkola. And for those of you who are not familiar with that, it's hard to copy all the brilliant acts of yesterday. So with that in mind, I can tell you, though, that you have a lot to look forward to now. Because I have been very, very fortunate to be asked to lead a panel about seeing the potential in each individual. And I have a brilliant group of young people that I want to introduce you to also, some older as well, but I'm mostly looking forward to hearing what the young people have to say, which is quite normal. So, this morning I would like to start with a story once told by one of my favorite American authors, Alice Walker. It is said that in a particular tribe in South Africa, when a person acts irresponsibly or unjustly, he is placed in the center of the village, alone and unfettered, and all work ceases. Every man, woman and child in the village will gather in a large circle around the individual, and then each person in the tribe will speak to the accused, one at a time, about all the good things the person in the center of the circle has done in his lifetime. Every incident, all the positive attributes, good deeds, strength and kindnesses are recited carefully and at length. And I think this is a beautiful example of what this morning's session is all about. Seeing the potential in each individual, or finding the gold in everyone. The most inspiring part about the work we do in our foundation is to see how the projects we collaborate with are constantly searching for new ways to find the gold in young people. Too often, young people who don't fit in to the standard system experience the opposite of the story I just told you. Many experience just to be labeled difficult without a real chance of changing that impression. And I think we all of us know how hard it can be to remove a label once it's stuck, especially on people. Today in Norway, around 1/4 of Norwegian students don't complete high school. And that's a very high number. And I think in America it's 1/3 of high school students who don't complete. There are a number of different reasons for this. And it doesn't mean that students lack talent. They have simply lost motivation for school and still have great skills that can be used in work life. And others just need the teaching environment to be adjusted a little. And that's what we're going to hear more about today. And for me, I think what is incredibly important is to see that our societies can't afford to lose thousands of young people just because their skills and resources are not acknowledged within the traditional school system or in society. And we need to see and think outside the box to discover that potential that doesn't instantly meet the eye. This requires some guts, patience, and risk-taking. And supporting young ones is a common challenge. It's a challenge for the school system, it's a challenge for society at large, it's a challenge for us as parents, as neighbors, and as friends. It is also a challenge for employers in the public and private sector who are encouraged to take a chance on young people and who have not completed school. When their potential is recognized, we all know that they may blossom, and they do, and we will see more examples of that today. And this brings us to our first speaker this morning, who is now my new hero within education. I've spent the last week looking on his talks on the internet, and I encourage you all to do the same after this session. I'm sure you'll be interested in hearing more of what he has to say. Being an educationalist, Mr. Gerver is passionate about education transformation. He writes about this in his book from 2009 called Creating Tomorrow's Schools Today. Already in 2005, he won a very prestigious award in the UK called the School Head Teacher of the Year. And since then he's been a political advisor on educational policy in the UK and has founded the Curriculum Foundation with Sir Ken Robinson. And he's worked with Sir Ken Robinson on developing awareness of human potential and creativity. Mr. Gerver now uses his educational knowledge when he works with some of the world's largest organizations and businesses on cultural and organizational transformation, human development, leadership, creativity, and innovation. And the three core principles that underpin Gerver's philosophy are communication, empowerment, and impact. So, Mr. Gerver, welcome to Norway, and the floor is yours.
Good morning. Wow.
Good morning.
This is amazing. This is amazing to be here. Now, I've only got a few minutes, so I thought if it's all right with you, I'm going to tell you about two of my heroes. The first is one of my own teachers. In many ways, every time I stand in front of an audience like this and share with them my thoughts through a speech, it's a testament to him. It's his legacy. You see, when I was 10 years old, I had a stutter, a stammer. I, like many kids, sadly, had gone through the experience of a very messy divorce between my parents, a very angry divorce. And as a result, had suffered the consequences. You know, I can stand here honestly today and tell you that as a 10-year-old child, I exhibited so many of the characteristics of a child in stress. I wet the bed as a 10-year-old boy, which, as you can imagine, is a mortifying thing. And I had a stammer. And then I met this remarkable man. This remarkable man who was supposed to be just my English teacher, who took an interest in me, who started to feel there was something beneath this child who wasn't particularly academic, but was clearly in distress. And his passion was drama. And he decided one day that the best way to help me with my stammer was to get me involved in drama, because he believed that if I was speaking somebody else's lines, it wouldn't necessarily have the impact it would that when I spoke for myself. Anyway, it worked, because here I am. Right? Thank you. Now, the tragedy about this man is, because I have to tell you, I live every day with regret about this man, whose name was David Drew Smythe. Because I, like many kids, lost contact with my teacher when I moved on to secondary education, and he emigrated to Australia. And I never thought I'd see him again. Until a couple of years ago, when we reconnected through Facebook. And as luck would have it, I was going out to Sydney to give a speech around that time. So I said, look, let's meet up for a beer, because I wanted to say thank you to him for everything that he'd done for me. And then the greatest tragedy happened to me. I was at London Airport waiting to fly to Sydney, and I got a message telling me that he died suddenly at the age of 65 years of age, in between me being in London and flying to Sydney. And I remember sitting there lonely in the airport, thinking to myself, I need to say something about this man. Anyway, my new book comes out next month, and the best way I could do it was to think, how can I capture it? I wanted to dedicate the book to him, which I've done. And the phrase that kept coming back into my head is the one I've used for the dedication, and it's this: that he changed the way I view my world forever. And I would suggest that that is the greatest testament to any educator or anyone working with young people, that is what we should strive to do. But the irony is, I want to now tell you about my second hero, because it happens the other way round too. So, I often get asked, as I'm sure many of you do, who my heroes are, who the great gurus are that have influenced my life and my career. And I honestly believe that the people that have had the most profound impact on my life are the children I've been privileged enough to teach. Looking back on my teaching career, I'm convinced that they taught me far more than ever I taught them. And there's one child in particular, whose name is Gary, who was in my first ever class as a 9-year-old child. And those of us that are teachers know that it's one of those remarkable things. We never forget the first class of children we ever teach. And actually, the further in time they go, the more wonderful they seem to be in our memories. They probably weren't that way, to be honest, but when anyway, Gary was in my first class. Now, Gary was a child who today would be identified as having many complex special needs. But unfortunately for Gary, when I started teaching and when he was in my class, special needs hadn't been invented yet. You know, in those days, you were either stupid or naughty. There was no such thing as special needs, right? So don't shoot the messenger. So I didn't have a lot of hopes for Gary. But within a week of meeting him, I knew that he was quite possibly one of the most remarkable human beings I had ever come across in my life. Our first week in our school, the head teacher was a visionary. And instead of getting the kids to go straight into the normal curriculum, the first week of the school year would always be a charity week. And the head teacher would invite a leader from a charity in to talk to the students. And then the children would spend the whole week raising money in different ways. And then on the Friday, the leader from the charity would come back and the children would present a cheque. And this was a school in a tough neighbourhood where we were. And this guy came in on the Monday and he gave a really moving speech about his charity. I don't remember the scandal at the end of the 1980s, beginning of the 1990s, that broke in Romania about the treatment of orphans. Mm-hmm. So this man had set up a charity to raise money to build an amazing facility for the orphans in Romania. And it was moving. And through the week we were raising money for charity, and on the Friday, again, I don't know if you know, but in most UK state schools, children wear uniform, right? And one of the ways we raise money is by extorting the children and telling them on one day a week they're allowed to wear their own clothes instead of their uniform, but they have to pay for the privilege. It's why, frankly, Britain's in such a mess right now. Right? No child has ever questioned this in a free democratic society. So you want me to pay to wear the clothes I have already paid to wear? They never ask. So, the Friday came about, right, and I'm doing my registration, and the kids are all coming up and putting a few pennies in a tin. And I get to Gary's name, and there's no clink in the tin. There's a thud on my desk. And I look up, and Gary has put his entire money box on my desk. Now, I don't know what the exchange rate is at the moment between Norway and the States. It's about 9 or 10 to the right? So if I tell you this was a 9-year-old child in a socially deprived community over 20 years ago, we worked out later there was over 1,000 Norwegian crowns in this money box. And I said, you can't give us that money. And he did that thing. You know, kids do it. They body language and face when they're about to go on to one. When they're about to explode. You know, they kind of go like this. They go... I thought, I don't have time for that now, frankly. So I thought, what I'll do is at break time, I'll phone your mother. Right? So I phoned his mother at break. I thought I'd have the conversation with her. She was expecting my call, because as soon as she picked up the phone, she said, this is about the money box, isn't it? I said, yes. I said, we can't take it. She said, you have to. I said, we can't. She said, you have to. I need to explain to you why, Mr. Gerver. She said, I've always taught my children, she had an older daughter as well, that if they want something in life, they have to earn it. By the way, wouldn't it be brilliant if all of our parents taught our children that? They have to earn it. And she said, Gary has grown out of his bicycle and has been desperate for a new bicycle. So he's been saving his birthday and Christmas money, and he's been going out and cleaning cars and doing gardening for people in the local community, and saving his money. She said he came home Monday so moved by the assembly on Romania that he said then, "Mummy, I want to give my money." And she said, "I've been arguing with him all week. Until last night," she said, "when I was convinced he knew what he was talking about. Because he turned round to me and he said, 'Mummy, please don't make me buy that bicycle now. I'd never enjoy riding it knowing where the money could have gone.'" Now, I don't know many adults who are that philanthropic, let alone 9-year-old children. So he was a hero to me from that day. Anyway, like most of us that teach in elementary school, he left the school a year later, and I thought I'd never see him again. But he was one of those students, and I'm sure any of you involved in education and young people have got experiences like this. He was one of those students that on a quiet day I would often think about and wonder, whatever happened to? And a remarkable thing happened 3 years ago. Because in my first book, I wrote a tiny paragraph about Gary, that story, as being a key motivator for my philosophy around education. And a week after the book was published, my wife, who's a school principal, got a phone call from one of her colleagues saying, "I've just read Richard's book." Now, I was just excited that somebody had read my book, frankly. Really? And you paid for it? And she said, "I've read Richard's book, and there's a paragraph," she said, "in the book." She said, "about a boy called Gary." She said, "Is it true?" And my wife said, "Yeah, absolutely," because my wife and I at the time had taught in the same school. She said, "Yeah, absolutely." She said, "That's amazing, because I think I know Gary now." She said, "Do you think that Richard would like to meet Gary?" Anyway, she knew I would. So we arranged it. And a week later, I found myself sitting in a frothy coffee shop, waiting for a 10-year-old boy to walk through the door. So imagine my shock when a 6'2" man walks into the building, right? Now, the thing is this, the only reason I recognised it was Gary was because one of his very severe special needs was he had very severe dyspraxia, you know, the motor problems. And you know, children that have severe dyspraxia often find it very difficult. They have to walk in a very deliberate way. So I recognised the walk. And we sat down. And I asked him the question that any of you would ask your Gary. What happened after you left our school? He said, "Well, it won't surprise you to know that I failed all my exams. I left school at 16. He said, "I did try." It was like I was still his teacher. Yeah, "I did try. I worked really hard." He said, "But I didn't pass any of my exams." He said, I left with nothing. He said, "But I don't know if you remember that when I was at your school," he said, "I was passionate about sports." And I said, "Yes, I do." He said, "But, you know, I was never able to compete properly with the other children because some of my complex needs." But he was absolutely passionate about sports. He said, "So I decided when I left school what I wanted to do was to work in a sports centre, in a leisure centre in sports management." So he said, "I applied to the local college who ran a course on sports management." I said, "What happened?" He said, "I didn't get in. They sent me a really nice note saying, 'Dear Gary, you sound like a lovely young man, but we don't think you'll cope with the academic rigour of the course.'" Now, what would most 16-year-old boys who had experienced so much failure in their lives do at that point? They'd give up, right? He didn't. He said, "I learned." He said, "So what I then did was I applied to the best college in the country who did a sports management course." He said, "But I learned, you see." He said, "What happened was this. I went in with my application form on a Monday morning and I said, 'Can I see the admissions tutor, please?' And they said, 'No.' So he said, 'I'm leaving.' But he went back on the Tuesday. 'Can I see the admissions tutor, please?' No. He did the same thing Wednesday and Thursday. By Friday, they were so sick of him. They said, 'Here's the admissions tutor.'" Anyway, he got on the course. Not only did he get on the course, he qualified top in his year. When he finished his course, he said to me he knew exactly what he wanted to do with his life. He said, but I needed another qualification. He said, and I found a course that ran on Saturdays for a whole year in London, 120 miles south of where we lived. He said, so what I did was I worked during the week, saved up, this is an 18-year-old boy, I saved up the money to pay for my train fare, a night in a hostel and my course fees for the Saturday for a year, and then I qualified. I said, what did you do? He said, I started the business I still run today. I said, what's that? He said, my business, he said, I saw a gap in the market. He said, I'm a personal fitness trainer specialising in people with physical and mental disabilities. So then I said to him, well, what about your spare time? He said, I don't really have any spare time because of my business. He said, but I do shut the business down in December. He said, because it appears nobody wants to get fit in December. He said, what I do is I take the profit from my company that I've earned all year, and he said, I've developed a relationship with a village in West Africa. And he said, I go out there and I spend December helping them to develop the skills and things that I do around fitness and health. You can imagine, by now, I am absolutely in tears, right? I'm also arrogant. So by this time, through this conversation, I've thought to myself, this is all because of me. So, I asked him the question, you know, as I said, I asked him the question, you know, I sat back like I hadn't thought about it. You know, I crossed my legs, picked up my fluffy coffee. And I said, who would you say had, apart from your mother, had been the biggest influence on your life? Anyway, he didn't say me, so I've never seen him again since. But here's my point as I close. To me, Gary was a hero at 9. What he achieved through his life was truly remarkable. He achieved most of that in spite of the system. And I would say this, Gary didn't go to university, he didn't get a high degree, he didn't go and work in a big company, but I would suggest to you that Gary is the ultimate 21st century citizen. And what we need is an education system that finds the Gary in every single child. Thank you very much.
We're going to now welcome in the rest of the panel. Would you like to come in, guys? And girls? Hey. Richard, I think you have met one of your Norwegian colleagues here. I hope you get a chance to talk also after. I'm going to turn this on just to see how much time we have and to be able to follow that, because I know we have a lot of people who would like to say a lot of things. I'll do a quick introduction. Nicolai is previously what we call in Norwegian a pøbel. I don't know what that is in English. A rabble, it says here in my notes. But do you have that expression in English, rabble?
I don't want to insult him, so he sat next to me.
No.
I think the expression is probably really, really nice young man.
Yeah, well, you know, they have a project here in Norway. It's one of our partner projects called the Rabble Project. Okay. So that's why it's actually a positive thing, and it comes from, Nicolai can tell us more about that himself after. Today he works on the project himself, and this is one of the projects that our foundation cooperates with. Nicolai has his own experience of what works and what doesn't work when you meet, when you are a young man in a difficult life situation and you need to go through some kind of education. So Nicolai is a great hip-hopper and wants to become a full-time musician, and he wants to do this because he wants to inspire other young people. Ingebjørg Mæland is one of my big heroes.
Thank you.
She's the head of the Work Institute in Buskerud, also one of our the projects that we work very closely with, and we feel very fortunate to be able to take part in that. Arbeidsinstituttet is an incredible place where Ingebjørg and her team meet young individuals in an often vulnerable period of their life, and they manage to dig out the gold. And Tine here, Sydtskow, is a student at Arbeidsinstituttet who has really felt their approach through a difficult period in her life. Tine's goal is to become a farmer. She has also taken on the aim of guiding other youngsters who are in a similar and challenging phase, and to guide them in their education. So I would like to start with Tine. I'm going to sit a little bit like this because then I can see you all better. Tine, tell me a little bit about you when you came to Arbeidsinstituttet and how they managed to transform your life in a way.
It's not so easy to explain the difference because it's so big. When I first came to Arbeidsinstituttet, I was a whole different person from who I am today. I can't recognize, actually. So when I was so quiet, I have no self-confidence, and I felt like I have losing the control of my life. And was going on this high school, videregående.
Yeah. High school.
I tried at least for 1 year, and when it didn't work out, I was coming in contact with Arbeidsinstituttet and Ingebjørg, and and then I think when I first came there, the first day, I think that was the time when it all kind of stopped in a positive way. And I begin to moving forward.
Tell me, what happened in Arbeidsinstituttet that day that made it change?
I think it is the way they speak to, they meet me when I came there, and the way they speak to me and see the person I was at that time, and not all the things in the past, and give me the opportunity to to change in my in the way I felt was most comfortable, and it was going so fast, the change. So it was all the people, and that they actually believe in me for real.
Yeah.
That's
that's quite a good feeling, no?
Yeah.
When people believe in you for real, huh?
Yeah.
It's very important. I know, Tine, we've met several times, and I know Tine is now a very accomplished role model for a lot of other people in the same situation as her. And what I love seeing about young people like you who've gone from a phase where you really didn't feel well about yourself, and then when you're given a possibility and people see you, you've decided also to use that in a way to inspire other young people. And I think that's so fantastic that you use that possibility, and it's always that when you've been seen, you want to help see others. And I see this with a lot of young people from all the projects that we'll be working. That's one of the results. And Richard, you also mentioned a little bit about that in your story, that when people are seen and given the opportunity, it really creates such a ripple effect of positivity.
Yeah. Massive. I mean, you know, what we have to remember is an education system should be about empowerment, not about control. And the problem with so much of the mainstream systems around, particularly the Western world, is they're designed by people who have a view that it's to train people to fit into existing structures and systems. And therefore, to a lot of young people, particularly young people that come from very disrupted and difficult backgrounds, that feels so alien, so controlling, and so dehumanizing. And what's really amazing to me is the greatest students I've ever worked with have come from some of the toughest families and some of the toughest backgrounds. And the thing is, the minute they feel that you're there to help them fulfill their potential, to unlock their dreams and to create aspirations and values, is the moment that you see those kids fly.
Yeah. I think we all can agree on this. Nicolai, tell us a little bit about your background in Pøbelprosjektet, also one of our partner projects. And what happened to you there?
Well, it was in 2008 when the Pøbelprosjektet started. But my background is that I don't like to blame anybody for my own mistakes, but my father was a drug addict and died when I was 12 years old. And that just crushed my whole world. I just lost everything, because when you lose a role model, you lose your future. So I dropped out of school when I was able to do that, and I started doing drugs myself and just being a rebel, you know. And I didn't see no future for myself. And then I got involved with child services and stuff like that. And one day they just called me in 2008 and said that they have a proposition for me at a place called Pøbelprosjektet. And I said, I know Pøbel, and I hung up. But I got a recommendation from a friend who went to the first course, and he said that you should just do it, because it's going to change your whole life. So I did it. And when I came to the course the first day, Eddie stood at the door when I was 10 minutes late. You don't come late to the Pøbelprosjektet. You can't come late. No. You do not come late. So I was 10 minutes late, and when I opened the door, he just stood there and that means out. And so then I just stood there like, what am I going to do now? I just walked out on the streets again, and what the fuck, I can't do anything. So I called my mom, of course.
A remarkable number of people these days use that method, is to call their mom. We heard about this yesterday in the panel as well, so I think it's a good strategy. So.
Yeah. So I called my mom, and she just called everyone. She even called the police. She called my stepfather, my grandmother, everybody. And all of them called Eddie. Yeah. They really fought for me. So Eddie called me and said, okay, you can come back and I will talk with you. So I came back and we talked for about an hour and became good friends with that talk. And he said, okay, you can come back. You got one more shot. So I got one more shot. And I came to the course. I finished the course for 6 weeks. And I became a car painter. That was sort of my dream, because I wanted to do something creative. I'm very, very creative, and I want to do something with that. So I became a car painter, but it wasn't for me, because the environment at these workplaces is so different from what I am. Because, you know, I'm a hip hopper, I wear big clothes, and you know, that you don't do that at these places. You don't talk like I do in those places. So I fell out again, and I started doing stupid stuff again, and I lost my job after 2 years. And when I lost my job, I lost my apartment. So I became homeless, and I was homeless for 7 months. And that was the roughest part of my life. It's very hard to talk about, actually. But in that period, I think Eddie got an intuition or something, because he just called me from out of nowhere and said, you have to come talk with me. So I came to talk with him, and he gave me a proposition to work at Pøbelprosjektet, to hold courses and tell my story to inspire other kids to do the same as me, and to understand that it's possible if you just want it, and if you want it enough, you can do anything. You can do anything if you say you can do it.
Nicolai, last time when we prepared for this panel, you spoke about the magic.
Yeah.
And tell me a little bit about the magic. What is the magic?
The magic at the Pøbelprosjektet is kind of hard to explain, because at Pøbelprosjektet they look at people individually. They ask, what is your dream? They don't ask what school you want to go to or what job you want to do. They just ask, what's your dream? You have you can choose from 3 dreams, and we're going to make one of these dreams come true. 100%. Definitely.
What was your dream?
My dream was to inspire others.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now I do that.
Ingebjørg, I know this is very familiar thinking to what you do. Tell us a little bit about what your dream is.
Oh, my dream?
Yeah.
My dream is to take all the young people, all the older people, politicians, the decision makers, people from leaders from factories, industries, into the same room to develop the way we are going to go, to get everybody into the society, taking part of it, having good lives, because I think that's possible. We have enough knowledge, we have enough economy, so I think we can do that. But then I think if we are going to do that, we have to take the young people with us and ask them a lot of questions and make schools to be more organic systems, to understand that we are going to lead together.
Which is fantastic, because that's what you really have done at Arbeidsinstituttet, or the Work Institute, that you really treat the students as equals. And how do you do that?
I think we have built up a culture, because I think much of this depends on which culture do you want. And I want, and we want, we have developed it together, a culture where we take care of each other. It's not like we are just digging for gold at the youngsters. The youngsters and all of us are digging for gold all the time at each other. And therefore I think I have the best job in the world. And we do it constantly. I think we are lucky. We have found some strategies, some methods that I think in many organizations we are telling a lot of what's not good, what's bad with the people, what are they doing wrong, and we are doing exactly the upside way.
Yeah.
What's good with the people, what's good what we are doing now, what can we learn from it, and what do we have to learn more to do it even better. Because I don't think we have found the best way to do things, but we are doing a lot of good things, and people are doing a lot of good things, and the young people have potentials that we have to, what you said, to emerge. And then we also identify strengths. So I think a lot of those things that was told yesterday, that when you are using your strengths, when you do things to fulfill your dream, then you also get the energy out of all the people. And I think that's what we are doing together.
But tell me also, because you, first of all, I can highly recommend a visit to Arbeidsinstituttet, the Work Institute. It's not too far away in Drammen. And if you are not feeling too well about yourself, you can just go in there, because every time you get there, you just feel so happy, and you come out of there feeling like the best person in the world, because you're all about acknowledging the good part about each other. And I feel every time we're together, you make me feel very special. So thank you. But you do that to all the students there. And what I love about the project is that you take people like Tine, and you help her start believing in herself again, like you have. And Tine is really one of the most reflected young people I've ever met. And
that's true.
Really an inspiration. And I think what you do with them is you also take them, a bit like Nicolai as well, you take their experiences and you use that experience to go out in schools.
I think that's one of the parts we like best to do together. Is to go to university, college, or to, if somebody of you want us to come, to have some courses where we are working with the culture, and then we also use the strategies, so you can do everything at the same time. So when we are together out telling other people and we plan this, we have a lot of fun and like work. Yeah, you can tell it.
Tine, tell us a bit about what is the key messages you give to other people when you teach them about the methods you use in Arbeidsinstituttet.
I think it's important that every person can dare to be open, and be themselves, because it's so hard if you all the time are going around and pretend that you're someone you not are, and having this mask on your face, and that's maybe you live in 100 years. Why? You can do what you want, like him said, and we have all these people around us, and we can come in contact with each other instead of just walking like machines or something.
Yeah. I know when you use a very specific method to make sure that you get, or you find, you make people comfortable enough. And what's the method you use? We've used it several times together.
It's about telling a story, actually.
Yeah.
We begin with telling a story about a time where we felt we do something that makes us feel at our best, and it didn't need to be a big thing.
It can be very small things.
Yeah.
You told me about a trip when you did something. Yeah, and I think I told you about something else. So, and that really, and then the other person is supposed to retell that story, and you find the positive attributes that you can put on that story. And it's a very effective tool. But you have a lot of tools like this, Ingebjørg, that you go and take around to schools everywhere. Richard, I would like to say, how can you work systematically with teachers and with the school system at large to create this kind of positive thinking and digging out the gold in young students?
I think one of the things is we have to ensure that the teaching profession feels professional, that they feel empowered. I think partly the problem here is we have a profession that are used to being told what to do, and a lot of their own passions and instincts as to why they've become educators to an extent have been ground down, and they feel like they're delivering a system, and it's often why our students feel that they're receiving a system. When you get a chance to talk to teachers about their own passions, what they came into education for, what great education should be about, when you get them talking about their Gary stories, for example, what you see is a profound sense of humanity and purpose, but a huge frustration that that's kind of oppressed by some kind of system. And so for me, one of the things we need to do is engage in dialogue with teachers to allow them to express their passions more themselves, so that then they can project those passions more powerfully into the eyes of their students. So for me, the great job is reprofessionalising the profession.
Which is music in your ears, Ingebjørg.
I love what you're saying, and that's the way we try to work.
Yeah.
So and therefore I also think when we take both the pupils, both the leaders, both the teachers into the same room, and we have this strategy to have those interviews Tine mentioned. And we are telling all this, you can call it galleries.
Yeah.
That was nice. We are talking about success stories, not gallery stories. And then we start this action research. What is the most important when you succeeded? Because when we start to talk about when we have succeeded, and we can start to find out what did we do, when we are doing something, and we need to be aware of it, because then we can do more of it. But we can't stop there. I think we have also then to say, and can we do something more that even increase it better?
I also, it's also about ensuring that teachers realise that education should be as much a celebration of allowing children to live in the moment, not just prepare for the future. There's a wonderful old story that I heard. John Holt, the famous progressive American educator, when he retired, but never had the time. And during his cello lessons with the music teacher he built a great relationship with, they had a cup of coffee one day to talk about his progress. And she was talking a lot about the progress and stuff. And she said, have you got any questions you want to ask me? And he said, just one. He said, I've been telling my friends now for months that I'm learning to play the cello. He said, when am I allowed to tell them that I'm playing the cello? And I think that's something we have to recalibrate about the perception of both education and childhood.
That's a good way of putting it.
But what happens when you start to talk about what you can, and you actually do it, and you have succeeded, is that there is big enthusiasm into the room. And I think when you say the change came so quickly, I think it's because we are using enthusiasm. We are using this to speak about what we can do more than what we are not. Because in Norway, I think we have had a kind of culture. It's okay to tell when we don't succeed. It's not that okay to tell when we really succeed. That's more in Brazil or United States. Or
It's very embedded in our culture that we're not allowed to be good in a way at something. Yeah. So I think it's a very important way of reframing that. Yes. Yeah. Because
there are somebody that tells us that in organization we usually use 80% of the time to find out why thing goes wrong, and 20 to look after what's good. And we have to do it the different way. 80% to tell about.
I think I can learn a lot from that.
And that's a big. Because we have been told, and I think it's in the culture to do the opposite thing. So we don't need to exercise to look for wrong things or bad things. But we need strategy, and we need to exercise to do the other way. Yeah. So then we need strategy and tools, I think.
Because Nicolai, that's what really happened to you at Pøbelprosjektet too, is, people looked at you in a different way and looked at you, as someone with resources. And how did that make you feel? Why was that, you did a 6-week course and it changed your life in many ways? Yeah. What did they do?
Well, it's, like I said, it's individually. They treat people different because they have different needs. Some people need more attention, some people don't need attention because they have a lot of attention elsewhere. But for me, it was, they gave me a lot of, I've always been nervous to talk to people because I've always been that since I was a kid. Not when I was a kid though. When I was a kid I was wild, but I grew up and I was very nervous. But they taught me how to take that away and to see that you don't have to be nervous because you're an awesome kid. They said that. And you have so many resources, and they just lifted me up to the skies, And they really helped me. If it wasn't for the Pøbelprosjektet, I probably wouldn't be here today.
And now you go and talk to young people as an inspirator in Pøbelprosjektet. What is your main message to them?
Be yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be yourself. Yeah.
Are we allowed to be ourselves in our society, Ingebjørg? You think? Or do we allow ourselves to be ourselves?
I think we are best at being ourselves, all of us. But I think we have made a kind of system that Richard are telling us a lot about, and which we have to do differently and look more. We have a system where we have to organize it more like organism. Was that the word? Organic.
Yeah.
And if we start to look for the strengths in each of us, and we use them more, I think then we can be ourselves more, and then we will be more happy. The health will be better. We will actually also be more effective, and that can also be a good thing. Yeah. What I also have seen is Nicolai, the way to go out and tell other people, to go out together and do those kind of things, and go out of your own organization and take part into the society, and understand that one and each of us can do small things, but they are big when we are doing them, all of us. We can change things. And therefore also we have the young people into the leader group. I think we need to think differently about them too. So I think we are quite happy. Yeah, we want to change the world together.
Yeah. And that's why I love, the ethos of Arbeidsinstituttet. It's because you see really each other as partners. It's not about only, in Arbeidsinstituttet everyone eats at the same canteen. It's not, they don't have teacher rooms. I mean, it's not a way where you see the difference between the teachers and the pupils. And I think, but it's not only something that you created in a physical form, it's also something you truly believe in as the most effective way to make change.
Yeah. And I was happy yesterday too when was it Timothy from Australia? When he was talking about the democracy. Because I think, yes, we have to do this more differently too. Yeah. And now we have tools, and we have a lot of knowledge, and we have a lot of people. And you said something about academia. I also think we need to take a look at that.
Yeah.
Who owns the truth?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a wonderful old African saying that it takes a village to raise a child. And I think what we need to do is hold every element of society to account, to understand that the education of our children is a process of collaboration, and that everybody has an active role to play in that. We can't abdicate responsibility to other people for the way our generations develop. We all have to become active stakeholders in that process.
Well, I don't think I could have asked for a better ending to this session. Richard, one of the things you said in your intro, that you said that your teacher that you met changed the way you saw the world forever. I think Ingebjørg and all of the rest of you guys really have changed a lot of other people in the way they see themselves forever. So I want to thank you so much for that, and it's a pleasure for us at our foundation to be able to work with all these amazing projects. So thank you, all of you, and thank you for participating.